February 20th meeting of the Village Park Ridge Board. We'll start with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And happy President's Day to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Happy President's Day.
And I see our own president
Yeah.
decided to take a trip to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Shanna, could you take the roll call?
Yes. Renford,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Menzel.
Yes. Okay, you all have the agenda in your packet. Any changes, questions on the agenda?
Could I just add at least one or two, couple small items just for discussion, brief discussion, if that's possible? If not, it could be until next month, but one would be the village garage sale. Just, I know we don't formally as the village host it, run it by any means, but I know I'm going to be getting questions about the garage
Sure,
sale. I've
sure.
already received one.
Mm-hmm.
So just maybe like, I know we usually do it on Saturday of Mother's Day weekend. That's what I'm probably gonna be telling residents unless we
I would
decide some.
ask Charm, she's usually,
And the other small topic would be the roads that they're plowed beautifully. I had a couple residents come to me asking about salt or just sand.
Okay.
Just a small discussion on how things are going.
Sure.
I know our contractors are doing a good job, but those are the two.
Good. We'll add those to the agenda unless anybody has any objection, and I guess I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda with those changes. So moved, seconded by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Motion passes. We'll proceed with the agenda. Item number 2, persons who wish to address the village board on specific agenda items other than a public hearing must register their request at this time. Those who wish to address the village board during a public hearing are not required to identify themselves until the public hearing is declared open by the village president. Individuals should not expect to engage in discussions with members of the board or the village clerk. Is there anybody who would like to make a specific comments on a specific agenda item at this time? Nobody's on, okay. If not, we will proceed to agenda item number 3. Persons who wish to address the village board for up to 3 minutes regarding a non-agenda item may do so at this time. Individuals should not expect to engage in discussions with members of the board or the village clerk. Anybody like to make a comment on a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4, review and approve board meeting minutes from January 16, 2023. Those are in your packet. Thanks again to Shanna for putting those together, which is not always easy.
I move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Barb, seconded by Gordon. I do have some discussion. I do have a few items that for the minutes, like I usually do. Some of them are kind of minor. Under agenda item number 8, where the first sentence refers to the zoning board recommended that it's actually the zoning committee.
okay.
So change that. It's a zoning board of appeals, which
Right.
is related,
Right.
but it's actually a committee. And then the second sentence, same thing, the zoning board also approved the work, so it should be zoning committee also approved the work. And then the only thing I would add to that at the end, in the last sentence, it talks about the board agreed, meaning the village board agreed that information about the alleyways
Or should I say
recommendations.
village?
No, I think that's fine, but at the end where it says blah, 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 and parking for special events, I would add on to that sentence, should be included in the new ordinance, revised draft will be presented at the next meeting for consideration. I think that's what we were talking about last meeting, is we had quite a few changes. And so I would just add on to that last sentence, should be included in the new ordinance. A revised draft will be presented at the next meeting for consideration. Does that make sense to everybody? And then, on the next agenda item number 9, the first sentence, Enzo explained that due to inflation and a revenue cap put in place by the state several years ago, I would take the word several out of there. It was more than several, I think it was 15 years ago, so I would just take the word several out and just have it placed by the state years ago. And then later in that section, second last sentence, where it talks about Friedrich made a motion to accept the resolution verifying the Department of Revenue language. I would put, instead of the word verifying, I would put pending compliance with the Department of Revenue language required for a referendum. Because that's pretty much all we approved what we wanted to do, but we weren't sure exactly whether the wording complied with the DOR. And then the only other thing I had was just a typo, agenda item number 11. Friedrich made the motion to approve the operator licenses. I think there's more than one. I think there's 2. I think there's 2 that we approved, so just plural. Otherwise, that's all I saw. Any other comments, discussion on that? On the minutes? If not, we just do a voice vote, right? Yeah. If not, all in favor of accepting the minutes with those changes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes pass. We also have the minutes for the caucus in your packet, our January 18 caucus. Any comments?
I only found one minor. In the first paragraph, my first name is misspelled, but it's spelled correctly everywhere else. So the third line, it's Kristen I.N.
I know it's an I too.
One vowel.
So I'll move to approve with that change.
Move to approve by Dan. We have a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Barb. Any more discussion? All in favor of accepting the caucus minutes with that change, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, those pass. Thanks again, Shanna, for putting those together. We will move on to the review and accept January treasurer's report, item number 6. You have that in your packet. Not a lot spent so far. Well, actually, there's quite a bit being spent,
Yes.
but
Taxes.
yeah, mostly the tax money that goes to our other taxing districts in the county here.
So it seems like we spent a lot more for general liability insurance.
Yes.
How'd that happen?
Steve, we didn't spend a lot more, Steve and I.
Yeah, so the previous budgets had a chunk of that insurance cost under the fire department because of workman's comp.
Oh, okay.
And so when we did the new budget, we did not, was it $3,500, somewhere in that range? We did not transfer that dollar amount over into our new budget, because the new budget did not have the fire department budget that we had previously. So that's a hole we have in our budget this year that was inadvertently an inadvertent mistake in our budget. So we will just have to deal with that
So you're saying we're still having to insure some of that equipment, but there's no fire department category to put it in?
We have to continue insuring because we still have the trucks. Basically, that's the main reason.
Did the insurance go up? The bill for the insurance? go up?
No,
went
actually,
down
it's a little less,
$500.
yeah, it was down
Okay.
less, $500 less than it was, but it's still, because of our budgeting error, we didn't, it had been in the budget previously, but we just didn't transfer that because it was under the fire department, which you could argue it probably should have been under the fire, it should have just been under insurance.
Right.
So, but good question, thanks, good catch there, Gordon. Other questions, comments on the treasurer's report? You have the balance sheet there too. If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
I'll move.
Or so
I'll
moved.
second.
Seconded by Kristen. Any more discussion? If not, we'll take a roll call on that.
Renford,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Menzel.
Yes. Next item, number 7, review and approve January and February bills and payments. You had a folder of bills that were paid, you had a chance to look at when picking up your packets. Any,
I move that we pay the bills.
Gordon moved to pay the bills, you have a
I'll
second? Second by Dan. Any discussion? I guess we'll do a roll call for that too.
Paulson,
Yes.
Holloway,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Renford,
Yeah.
Menzel.
Yes. Thank you. We will move to item number 8, approve levy limit referendum plan for resident question and answer sessions. I have, I put together, I will read this as well, but pass these around. I put together just a quick plan on communicating in regard to the referendum. And so I'll just go over this real quickly. I think we had talked a little bit about this before, at least some of the ideas. But I guess what we propose to do is week of February 27, which would be fairly soon, we'd send out a mailed pamphlet to residents. Pamphlet would show what will be on the April 4th ballot and explain why a levy increase is being requested. The pamphlet would include things like a chart and then an explanation showing the breakdown of property tax dollars, including what share of the property taxes goes to the village, what share goes to the county, to the school district, and to the vocational technical district. Because I think a lot of residents don't understand that. They just look at their total tax bill and they just assume that it all goes to their municipality, and of course it's a very small percentage. I think it's 19% that goes to the village. And then the pamphlet also could include a history of the state levy limits and how the village budget has been affected over the years. Just for example, we've had to dip into our reserves. It's 2 or 3 years in a row now, I believe. One year we dipped in a lot. I mean, it was tens of thousands that we dipped into reserves. So we'll have information about that and why the state levy limits are a big discussion item at the state level as well right now. There's some talk in the legislature about making some changes that would assist municipalities. So just having a little bit of a brief history of the state levy limits and how that's affected small communities. We'll have a little bit about that. And then what the increased levy would actually do for the village. In other words, okay, you're gonna ask for more money, more of my tax dollars. what's this gonna do, so we can have an explanation of that too. And then on March 15 and March 22, those are 2 Wednesdays in March, proposed that we would have a public Q&A sessions at the Iverson Park All-Purpose Lodge, and just have a Q&A. I'm hoping our village accountant Jeff Kropp said he would be willing to come to those if he's available. So I'm hoping to pick some dates that would work for him, which will be next on my agenda to get a hold of him and find out if he's available on these 2 dates. So I guess one question I have is, I thought maybe 2 sessions would be good, just in case people are on vacation, 1 week, especially that time of the year. That's sort of spring break time of the year. So, unless you feel that it would be better just to have 1, we could do 1.
And this will be at the park thing?
Yeah, Anderson Park All-Purpose Lodge.
So it looks like they're both Wednesdays. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's great to have 2 sessions to play. Is there any benefit to maybe doing it at a different date?
Different day of
In
the week.
case there's a conflict, families have
could.
soccer or
Mhm.
hockey. Soccer's not playing right now, but they have a conflict.
Yeah, we could do that. Like the 15th is a Wednesday, we could
Yeah.
do the Thursday, the 23rd.
Sure.
Does that sound?
I'm just throwing it out there for ideas.
No,
I wouldn't
it's
have
not-
any conflicts attending personally, but
No.
I know people do.
When is
Yep.
spring break this year for the Stevens Pond School
I
District?
don't know that off the top of my head. Maybe,
right around there.
Shannon, maybe you could search that if you can, just to see if you can find that. So anyway, while she's doing that, I'll just move on to, and then on March 27, that week, or hopefully it will be delivered by then, would be our spring newsletter, which of course would have the usual things that we normally would have in the spring newsletter, including reminder to vote on April 4th. But then the feature article in that issue would be on the referendum. So it would take quite a bit of information from the pamphlet that we would put together, but then also include addressing any questions or concerns that were brought up during the Q&A session. So if there's a lot of people are asking a certain question, then we could just include that and try to answer that in that article. So that's kind of what I had in mind for the communication for it. I don't know if anybody have any thoughts or.
Spring break is that second week.
Of March?
The second week that it's the
The week, so that'd be the week of the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not sure if that's good or bad for,
Probably bad.
It's probably bad.
Well, what I was gonna suggest is that we just have 1 session. And the reason I say that is because then what we present is heard by everyone that attends, and we're not saying, have the potential of saying different things in different meetings. And, we're communicating with a pamphlet. I just don't see a need for 2 meetings, really. If someone expresses a concern, they can reach out and we can share that information another way, but I really don't, it's not typical, to have a public meeting that basically presents the same stuff twice. We could, but I'd say we should.
any other thoughts on that?
Well, I do agree that if we are meeting, the village board meeting for the month of March, the 3rd Monday, assuming we meet the 3rd Monday next month, would be March 20th. So if somebody was not able to attend, hypothetically, the 1 Q&A session we had, they could come to the village board meeting with questions. But with that said, coming from a teacher background, and I know this is for a municipality, as a teacher, when we tried to pass the referendum multiple times in Wausau, in that school district, there were many Q&A sessions held. I realize this is not a school district referendum,
Right,
so
right.
it's not apples to apples comparisons, but
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. So we could have if we have our meeting on March 20th, which is that's the 3rd Monday in March, we could have an open agenda item,
Sure.
a Q&A agenda item for that meeting. That actually would then make it so we wouldn't have to schedule two different.
That would pick up like people that can't make it, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And people can attend on Zoom.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
That would give access to Zoom. I like that.
okay.
That mailed pamphlet, will there be reference, to the last time the limit, the tax levy was raised? In other words, does it say in there how long it's been since we?
We could research that.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know if the village has ever done it by referendum before, because before the levy limits were introduced, and I think it was around 2003 or 2004, somewhere in there. Before that, the municipalities you just raised your taxes according to
Right.
what you.
You did your budget and then figured
Yeah,
out your levy,
yeah.
or your mill rate, and now you
Yeah,
figure out your levy and then you do your budget.
So we've probably never had another referendum.
I don't think we've ever, to my knowledge, Gordon, you might remember that better than anybody.
I don't think so, I think a couple times when we did some sewer relining, it was a big hit to the budget, and we did increase quite a bit, but it was because we were allowed to, since we were taking on debt for that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I would expect that we would want to have some history that would include that kind of thing, and explaining a little bit what the levy limits are. I have a pretty good explanation of that in layman's terms that we could use. I don't want to take up too much space in that, but because I think ultimately what people really care about is how much of my taxes going up and what is it gonna pay for, so.
I like the idea of the pamphlet. A couple things that I think would be very helpful for people to have would be links to things. And we don't want it to be a lengthy pamphlet, I understand that. You want to keep it concise and brief and readable. But if there's any links to like what the current mill rates are, Point compared to Park Ridge and surrounding areas for one. Also, I think it's important in the pamphlet to state where we've come from, that we're coming to you with the referendum request because of the work we did the past 2 years, if not more, on the comprehensive planning committee and the strategic planning committee, where we've invited all residents, surveyed them, reviewed it. So I'd like to see a link to the Park Ridge website with the comprehensive planning committee report and the strategic planning committee report saying, the referendum is really, we want to pay for and buy and do the things that residents are saying they want. We want roads, we want lights, we need to fix things, the infrastructure, so I think that's important. And then the last small thing, which I'm sure will be done, is I remember when we, pie charts or graphs, maybe it's comparing Stevens Point to Park Ridge, or historically a bar chart, pie graph. I know when we've talked about fire department decisions in the past, or just budget decisions, I know residents have actually come to board meetings making their own pie chart. I saw that 3 or 4 years ago, and the crowd responded favorably to it. It helped my thinking as well with processing, so I think all this is good. I'll stop talking, those are my brief thoughts on the pamphlet.
Good,
Good
thanks.
idea.
So,
Didn't you do a pie chart?
The pie chart with the breakdown of the tax.
Yeah, at our
That's
last
a-
meeting.
That's a good
Yeah,
pie chart.
yeah. That's kind of what I would envision, is at least that would be one of them. There could be other, but I agree, just having visuals that get the point across would be helpful, I think, for people. The things I think we need to communicate are, what are we gonna do with the added money? Why is more money needed? And then also communicating how small a percentage of your tax dollar actually goes to your village. So I think it's right now, this year, I just looked at this, calculated percentages, and the school district, it's over 40% of your property tax dollar goes to the school district, 31% goes to the county, 19% goes to the village, and 5% goes to the technical college. So And so even when, we can also include what the impact would be on a home of 100,000. That's usually what they do, is they give you how much it would increase the mill rate for the village, and then what that means for your property. So we can include information like that too.
So I have a question. So I'm assuming you're gonna draft this pamphlet, or put this pamphlet together with Shanna. Did you want anyone from the board to review it and kind of work with you on it?
I think it'd be good to have at least one board member. I don't think we can have more than one. We can have 2 board members, which includes me, but I can't have more than
Right.
that.
That's
But I
what
think
I'm-
two members that would work on it would be good, so I don't know if anybody would be interested in reviewing or helping with that.
I will.
Great.
Would we be allowed, your trustees that aren't working on it, to maybe, I'm just thinking spot check it as like a fresh set of eyes when it's done, to see if there's any, if that could be sent out individually, if that's allowed or something, just for comments to the trust, I don't know, and
I think it'd be best to.
Just do the 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're talking
yeah,
more than a quorum.
that's true.
So I guess I would, well, and of course, the pamphlet is just the first
Sure. No, that makes
iteration. The public Q&A sessions, well,
Yep.
we'd have 2 sessions on the 15th and the 20th. So we can address any other issues there, and then also we can address other questions or change or edits to the original information in the newsletter articles. I think we'll have plenty of.
Yeah,
I
that's,
think I think it should be a pretty open process for
that's true. Will the
communicating.
pamphlet list that March 15th, write in the pamphlet that it is a Q&A, or could it? And then like come March 20th to the village board meeting if you have additional questions, or?
Yeah, so I assume, I would, that's the other thing we need to include in the pamphlet is the dates and times for the Q&A. In addition to, putting that on our website.
I guess another thing that probably goes without saying, but just to verify, in the mail packet, there needs to be, an explanation of the fire department change and the justification for it.
Well, and there's actually quite a few budget changes, that being one of them.
Correct.
Well, but also, arsenal plowing budget is going up considerably. I mean, just this year, and actually, this year is gonna end up being even higher than what we had projected in our budget. I think we already,
The sand and salt.
yeah, so,
Yeah, and I agree that there needs to be a level of focus on the fire department. That's a big chunk of it.
Good. Well, no, I don't think there's a reason to take I don't think we need to make I think we can just proceed with this, with, Barb and I will put together that first pamphlet, and then and that will advertise the public Q&A sessions.
Do you
And-
want me to put this on the website now? Or do you wanna wait for
Not
the
until
pamphlet
I
to-
confirm the dates, because
Okay.
so the only thing that could change the dates of the Q&A would be, the availability of our accountant. He wouldn't necessarily have to be there, but I think it'd be really helpful to have him there. He's very knowledgeable in this stuff, I mean, municipal accounting, so, he would be really helpful. So that would be the only thing that might change is these dates. So I'll confirm that with him ASAP. Okay, any other questions, discussion on that? let's move on to the next item, number 9, approve the request for proposal seeking a consultant for street and right-of-way improvements. And you have that in your packet, the draft. By the way, Dan did an amazing job on this. This is, this kind of stuff's not easy to do because you have to, you have to try to include everything that you're wanting a firm to address, and I think he nailed it pretty good. It's a fairly lengthy document, but I think the engineering firms that look at these, I think they're used to looking at this kind of thing. In fact, Dan, I think you got some sample language from other RFPs that have been sent out.
Yeah, really when it comes right down to it, the deliverables are, I try to keep it pretty basic and, simplified, so they don't think they have to dig in and dig too deep on all this stuff. I think a lot of it, they can get a pretty good handle on just by, a general view, so that's what I'm trying to ask for. And, we do need some scheduling that kind of pins things down by year. And one thing I did notice that I left out that I think we should add under deliverables. So under street improvement strategies, the last bullet, recommended general street improvements scheduling strategy, we should have funding and scheduling. Because I really didn't mention anywhere in here, but we really want them to take a look at how we want to fund this stuff and give us recommendations. That's a big part of it. And on the next list of bullets for stormwater, same thing, drainage and funding strategies, the last bullet.
Dan, do they have different ideas about funding that they might, I mean, would it be something that they might rather than?
They know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, many of the firms that I'm gonna suggest we send this out to work with municipalities all the time, so they kind of know the spectrum of
Okay.
where to go for funding and how to get it, and more so than we do, for sure. So,
Yeah.
So, and that's something we can even talk about in a little more detail when we shortlist them and actually bring them in and talk to 3 firms, suggesting that we can talk about some of these things specifically and what we're looking for, and what we don't know and what we want to know.
So we put this out to 3 companies that you kind of know.
Well, I'm going to suggest more than 3.
Okay.
Probably 6 or 8.
Okay.
And we'll narrow that down based on their proposals and see
Okay.
see which ones align best with what we think we want, and then none of them are going to align perfectly, and then we'll bring them in and talk to them.
Okay.
And once we choose a firm, then we can fine tune the contract to what we want.
Okay.
And
Some firms are gonna eliminate
Sure.
because of the timing.
Sure.
Some of them just can't, either have other big jobs going on, so.
I thought this was very well written. Dan, you did include on page 3 on the consultant requirements. I loved how you said listed in approximate rank order of importance, and item number 2 was knowledge and experience in local projects, including funding sources and grant applications. So you did see that, and it piqued my interest. I like that was listed.
That was very well.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of need to move on this and to get this out, and so we have a few little tweaks that a few edits that we've made. I guess I would ask for a vote from the board to proceed with this RFP with the changes we talked about, but also, if there's other, tweaks that we need to make, based on what Dan finds out from other experts, I guess I would ask the board to trust that, that we
Yeah,
could
this one,
finalize this
At
document.
this point, I'm not reaching out to anyone else. I did get input and, the engineer I spoke with, she said generally this is well put together and should be fine, but originally I had included, continuing, acting as a continuing village engineer in this proposal. And she suggested that we separate that out and go ahead with just the conceptual and financial planning solicitation for now. And it may be that the firm we pick for this, we might want to just continue as the village engineer. And if not, we can put out a proposal for that later when we get to a point where we actually have a project that is in the, on the horizon that we're working toward.
Sure.
So that was taken out just to simplify this.
Mhm.
And so I have had another engineer take a look at this that has experience, used to work for AECom, knows how these things are put together, so.
Okay.
And she was comfortable with it. So.
Are you pretty confident of the schedule? Are you still okay with the dates that are in there?
Yes.
So like if we
Yes,
approve,
She said that the schedule, should be fine, and we can, it's enough, it's reasonable enough that, we'll get proposals and we can, discuss a detailed schedule later,
because if we
when we work on the contract, if they need to be tweaked.
if we approve this the RFP tonight, then the distribution or publication of the RFP would be so it'd be Wednesday.
This
So I guess that's so we'd be getting it out right away.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So I guess I would entertain.
as long as Shannon's okay with that.
Yeah, we should be able to get. Well, we'll have to come up with.
As in Wednesday.
This one's
As in 2 days from now.
the day after the election.
Yeah.
So-
well, they can post it on the website for sure, and then.
Really, the only, attachment would be a map, right?
Right.
There's
Yeah.
any other.
Yep. And,
You do have requirements for what you're gonna be doing a lot tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be busy, first of all. So if this is approved, if you could get me, because I can set the website, you can set when you want it to publish. So if you guys could send it to me tomorrow, I could set it to publish for
Sure.
Wednesday.
Yeah, that'd be good. And then, do we have contact information for the firms that we're gonna wanna send this to? We're gonna wanna,
I should get the, I've got it.
we wanna distribute it by email to them, right, I suppose, right? Okay.
I just have one question on the very last line of the proposal. The selection process, it says the shortlisted firms will be interviewed and the selected firm will be notified within 14 days of proposal submittal. But if they can submit it essentially March 1st, they won't hear within 14 days, because we're letting them know, I think the timeline by March 31st, so does that, do the last couple words need to be reworded? Because they could submit their proposal next week, but they're not going to hear from us based on the timeline until March 31st, so that's more than 14 days. Am I making sense?
Yeah, maybe that's a word.
I'm not sure how to word it, is that you'll
Within 14
be
days
notified
after.
by April 1st? If you've been selected? When I read that, I'm like, I had a question.
So maybe put a date in there instead of within 14 days of.
Yeah, maybe that would be better.
If we publish it on Wednesday, some firm could turn something in within a week, but they're not going to hear back until the end of March, so that would be more than a couple weeks.
put a date, you could put April
So
3rd.
selected firm, so board interviews shortlisted firms and select consultant, that's March 20 to 24. And then this says that the selected firm be notified within 14 days, so you could just put, couldn't you just put notified by April?
3rd is the first one, yeah.
Put notified by April 3rd instead of by within 14 days of.
That would be better.
Yeah.
Notified by April 3rd. 2023.
So, I'm assuming with these minor changes, I won't need to do another draft, we can just put this one on.
I think if you're comfortable with it, it sounds like you've got enough input from people in the field. So I guess what we'd look for is a motion to accept the RFP with the edits that would add the word funding, improvement, street improvement and funding, street improvement, funding and scheduling strategies, and recommended general drainage and funding strategies. And then also changing the last sentence to say, and the selected firm will be notified by April 3rd, 2023. I guess I'll entertain a motion to accept the RFP with those changes.
Second.
Gordon moves, and second by Barb. Any more discussion? Let's do a roll call on this too.
Holloway,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Renfert,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Menzel.
Yes. Thanks again, Dan, for your work on that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, we will move on to number 10, discuss and approve ordinance for right-of-way and parking. We had our initial draft of this was, we talked about it at our previous board meeting. Again, there's not a big hurry to get this ordinance done, but you have this sort of the second draft in front of you.
Yeah, and I didn't look back at the notes, or I didn't have very good notes, so I missed a couple things, so I'll need to redraft this.
Yeah.
I did put in snowplow markers, but I
Yep.
didn't say anything about clearing around hydrants,
Right.
camper and trailer parking, or special event parking, so I need to plug that in.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna ask about hydrants.
Yep.
I had another question I had on this. So if you look at number 6, under plantings, 6 sub 3, where it says trees, bushes, and other plantings that exceed 24 inches in height will not be allowed within any vision triangle. Earlier, under number 2, we talk about vision triangles, but it doesn't mention the 24 inches there at all. And so I'm wondering, it says under number 2B, in the second sentence, it says trees and bushes should not be allowed in these areas, and any plantings within the vision triangle should be low, such as not to impair a driver's vision. I think instead of saying low, it maybe just say
Not to
should be,
exceed
should,
24
yeah,
inches.
yeah, should be, no higher than, just make it consistent with the, with
Yeah.
6.3, with 6.3. Does that make sense? Did you see that? See that?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just debating in my head whether, I mean, this is general information, so it could,
Yeah.
you could argue either way, but
yeah.
I can put it in there, that's fine.
Or if, unless you just want to take it out of that general information part and just not even try to, because it is sort of duplicating, but whatever you think, but, it's just that one had 24 inches and the other one just a low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, other than that.
I'll put in 24 inches.
I had some notes on that too, although I think you caught them all now. Maybe I'll just grab this. See if there's anything else on here since you're kind of going back to I had, I had to, check, well, we were gonna check with, on the hydrant about snow removal around the hydrant, so I don't know if, I think we were gonna talk to the chief on that. And then,
Who's we?
I-
Am I doing that?
yeah, well, that's what we probably should decide. I
No,
can,
you did,
I,
you did talk to, you did ask him.
about snow removal around hydrants?
Yeah.
Was that,
What
was
did
that
he
before I
say?
went on my cruise or after I went on my
There you go.
cruise?
What did he say?
I think he said yes, that we should try, someone should try to maintain that.
Alright,
I can look back.
okay. If you could, cause I don't wanna bother the chief again.
You can make me do it.
The other thing I had a note, something about the alleyway, easement,
Yeah.
right of way, I just had it,
There are people parking.
easement for utility, so I don't know if we're gonna,
Yeah, I think,
I don't remember what we were gonna do on that, but
we didn't really decide what we're gonna do.
Okay.
That's kind of a complex issue. I can try to put something together, but I guess, I don't really know how the board feels and what we wanna say
yeah,
on that.
yeah,
We've got a lot of people that have basically filled up the alley with, or the alley is just naturally filled with large
Mhm.
trees and bushes. So
Yeah.
there's various things happening, and I guess,
Well, the only
I'm
thing
not
I
sure
think about
what we
is
do at this point.
when we lost power that summer, so many years ago, and the crews couldn't get down to the poles because there was stuff parked there. So,
Yeah, and I guess the question is, did those crews, I mean, was there, a lot of concern that was raised? I never heard anything.
well,
They have ways of getting at those. I guess I have questions in my mind what we need in the alleys, because we could have a situation where we have blocks that don't have alleys, and then what do we do?
right. I guess the question could be asked, do we need alleys?
well, what was the purpose of?
Yeah,
the
I mean, other than,
original-
access by utilities, which they,
So I guess,
They would have- I think
Some
they
people
have
have
an
their
easement.
garages only accessible by the alleys though. There's Linwood, yeah, the house
do
that
I
was
just-
for sale a year or two ago, their garage is only accessible when they drive on the alley and enter the
so
garage,
to
which is
avoid
behind their
talking
home.
getting into a lot of detail on this, should I just put a note on here? Or just have a section, alleys, and just leave it vacant for now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so we remember to talk about it
yeah,
later?
that'd probably be a good idea, yeah.
Because I hate to have it bog us down
Right,
this meeting
right.
later until we kind of.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know off the top of my head what is currently in our ordinances in regard to alleyways. I don't know what we have now.
Yeah, and that's to be reviewed.
Yeah. But for now, it might be good just at least put it in there with a question mark, and then we can add some stuff, so. Well, good, well, thanks for your continued work on it, and I know that was sort of put on a little bit on the back burner while you were doing the RFP, so I appreciate your work on
I had 3 brief comments for the parking section, parking 5. I think I talked about this last time, but how are we going to include a definition of what constitutes long-term parking? Like number of days? There's no definition really of what long-term is.
that. More than 12 hours.
Okay. And then a second comment I had, so, how will this, we kind of talked about this last time as a board, but how will this be enforced? Are we fining, towing, can they be towed right away or is a warning notice going out? I don't know what to do with that, and then the third comment would be, I know we talked about parking for 12 hours, but I thought about this after a meeting last time. Do we care about the 12 hours or do we care about the specific time frame? For example, 7 AM to 7 PM hypothetically, or 7 PM to 7 AM, I'm just throwing that out there, do we care that it's 12 hours or do we care about, we don't want overnight parking on the street? And I didn't know where to go with that, cause other cities and towns have no overnight parking and it's way bigger than me, but I'm just throwing the question out, food for thought to think about. Is it any general 12 hours or does it matter?
See
Yeah.
a reason to down.
Yeah. That's all I had, everything else looked good.
Yeah, I mean, where specific hours might be nice. This is a fairly simple, easy thing to understand and abide by. If we start putting exact hours, then how about weekends? Is
Well,
weekends different than weekdays?
If we're gonna assign some specific times, then maybe we should have another section, have short-term parking, long-term parking, and, you know, I don't know what you call the other, but another section that would be specific to certain time periods we don't want any parking.
Sure.
Mhm.
Make it as
Because
general,
really, it's, these first two are
make it as
kind
general
of
as possible.
everyday
Yeah.
use,
Yeah,
you know, trying to limit people from
Yeah.
getting carried away with parking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
because what are you going to do about enforcement?
That's what I was
Right.
thinking.
Yeah, I mean,
Because you have to be consistent.
yeah,
Yeah.
so to make a general statement.
Part of me thought kept it general, but I was thinking when I went home, I'm like, are there other things I'm not thinking of why, you know, a lot of towns I visit or cities have certain, I mean, I know we're not like the city of Minneapolis, for example, we're not that large by any means, but there's probably thought behind when they stipulate specific hours, there's reasons why, and I'm not thinking of it, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know if anything specific in here, but generally, our ordinances are enforced when, you know, they come to head, or there's an issue, somebody
Mm.
complains.
Yeah.
Or when there's, you know, construction that's changing a building site or changing a roadway, then ordinances would come into play, but,
I think one thing good
I
about.
think we can really get into, you know, a lot of detail on specific enforcement on pretty much any ordinance. I don't know how much detail we need.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one nice thing about living in the village, I think that a lot of the residents probably would agree, is there's a relative amount of tolerance in the village for things, and you know, where we have ordinances and we have enforcement, but we very seldom need to use enforcement, because most people are pretty good when they get a letter about something, that if they're violating an ordinance, they're usually pretty good about that. So part of me kind of likes the idea of keeping this kind of thing fairly general and not too restrictive.
Yeah, I agree. If it develops into a bigger issue, then you might
We can always change
take a
it.
second look at it.
Well, good. Any other comments? So, you know, we can maybe shoot for trying to finalize this for the next meeting, but like I said, there's not a huge rush in this. I think it's good we're taking some time on this, because we're thinking about it quite a bit. So, we'll have this on the agenda for March, and if we can finalize it, then great. We're getting there, so appreciate the work. And if you have any other suggestions on this, feel free to send it to Dan or to me or to Shannon or whatever, and we'll keep the draft moving. Well, good. Let's move on to item number 11, spring primary election. Shannon, I think you can give us a little update on.
It's tomorrow. That's kind of my update. Polls open at 7, they close at 8. Please come vote. There's not been a lot of activity prior to election day, so I encourage everyone to come vote.
Thank you. Oh, speaking of that, before I forget, so after this meeting, if a few of you could stick around, because we need to convert this room to,
We kind of figured it out today, we just need to move these tables.
okay, good, all right, so we'll, I'll stay around and help with that, so. Okay, thanks. Number 12, zoning board committee position opening, so our zoning board, zoning committee chair and zoning board of appeals chair. We haven't filled the chair yet,
No.
right? Okay, so we have one person that volunteered to be on the committee, correct?
Correct,
Okay. So we're still looking for a chair,
and 2 alternates.
2 alternates. Is it alternate for the committee and also for the zoning
I
board of
think it's
appeals?
just the zoning board of appeals.
Just the board of appeals that needs an alternate?
I think, or maybe it's both.
Okay,
One of them needs 2, and one of them might need just 1.
just one, okay. So anyway, keep that in mind, we'll need to recruit somebody by April 1st, so.
Is there any background we're looking for?
Not really, you know, I mean, usually zoning committee, it's nice if you have somebody that is pretty good with attention to detail, you know, cause you sort of sometimes have to research and look into current ordinance, cause your committee might be asked to either recommend a change to an ordinance or help draft a new one. So it's good if that person is interested in that kind of thing. The zoning board of appeals, that is really, usually it's the same person that chairs that, the zoning committee and zoning board of appeals. Historically, the village is usually the same person, but doesn't have to be. Zoning board of appeals is really a judgment. It's a citizen court that decides whether a zoning variance, for example, will be accepted or not. And so the chair has to be somebody that is can communicate clearly what the ordinance is, can communicate to the zoning board of appeals members what the citizen is asking for, and then proceeding with a vote to either deny or accept the variance. So you sort of have to be a judge operating a courtroom.
But it's also a pretty low commitment.
Very seldom. What'll be had maybe
think
one every
one-
2 years.
There's been no board of appeals since I've been here.
Okay. I think the last one was Lamar's request, which I think was almost 2 years ago now. So,
Right.
And I think the zoning committee has only met twice since I've.
yeah.
They met once last summer and then
Yeah.
they just met in January.
Yeah, maybe twice a year, so it's not a huge time commitment, which also can make it challenging, especially when you're committee chair, because you sort of have to be at least well-versed, or at least willing to become well-versed in ordinances, and then you have to be able to set up a meeting and be able to operate, being confident in what you're doing. So I'm kind of hoping that somebody currently on the committee maybe would be willing to take over the chair position.
That makes
So,
sense.
but if you have any names that come to mind, let Shannon or me know.
But even if they do, you still gonna need another person coming on the committee, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay,
Next item?
item number 13, spring cleanup, large item pickup scheduled for April 20th. So we did not have a spring large item cleanup, but when we thought about it, we thought, a lot of people are cleaning up their homes and getting ready for the village-wide rummage sale. And so it just seemed to make sense to have a large item pickup in the spring sometime before the Mother's Day weekend, so we scheduled it for April 20th. I think we were partly limited on what
There were 2 dates
Harders,
available.
Harders could do, so that seemed to be the date that worked the best. So we'll announce that. So maybe this is where we could put in your
Oh, yeah.
thoughts about the village, rummage sale and and then the road salt thing. So village rummage sale, I think it's usually, it's that Saturday and Mother's Day weekend. I'm assuming it's gonna be the same, but we should check with Sharon to see if she's willing to
Yeah.
coordinate that again.
So
Would you wanna look into that with Sharon?
Yeah, I
to
could
see-
just check in with her. Because I've received a couple questions from residents, I'm like, well, let's talk about it tonight
Yeah.
if we can.
Yeah.
So Mother's Day is Sunday, May 14th this year.
Mhm.
So I'll check with Charm, but I'm assuming it would be Saturday, the garage sale would be Saturday, May 13th, the day
Mhm.
before Mother's Day.
Mhm.
And, yeah, maybe Charm could write up a little short blurb to put in the quarterly newsletter or the next newsletter, spring newsletter if there's room. And
Yeah,
the spring cleanup, the large item pickup,
yep,
those items could go in there.
yep,
Um,
yes. So
Or
just-
on the village website for sure.
just to clarify, so the village board doesn't decide when the rummage sales is.
Right.
Because it's not a village,
Right, correct.
but, so if you could ask Charm, if she could let
Okay.
us know,
Yes, yeah.
what the plans are, and then because we can then, announce it, you
Sure.
know, on the website and also in the
Okay.
newsletter. That'd be great if you could do it,
Yeah.
and whatever you find out, you just let Shanna
Okay,
know, and then
It's
we'll.
also
go
good
from
to
there.
know because the street sweeping, we usually like to give the deadline out.
Yeah.
So the sooner they hear when they need to do it, the better. Just done.
Yeah, thanks for the
Yeah.
reminder too, because we'll need to,
Seventh and Street sweeping.
yeah.
For the roads, I only had, I guess it was a clarifying question. So I had a couple residents ask me, and maybe I forgot, that very well could have happened. I looked through my notes and I couldn't find it. So Zableski, when they come through, they obviously plow, they've been doing a great job. Are they using a mixture of salt and sand, or just kind of judging by the road conditions, basically? I don't know what to tell residents. I kind of
Yeah,
forgot the details, so.
It's totally based on road conditions.
Okay.
They know that the village, wants salt and
More,
sand to be
yeah.
used sparingly,
Yeah.
especially salt.
Yep,
So they know that. That was really an unusual period of, slush and ice that we had.
Was there a
so-
specific concern that anyone mentioned?
just some walkers that go out daily that they were kind of slipping and one had
Mhm.
fallen, I think, but she was generally okay, but she was just curious on, what was used, so.
Yeah, it's as needed, and typically it's intersections that they worry about, and it's pretty much the same, procedure that they use in Village of Whiting. They
Yeah.
also plow the Village of Whiting, and they're, part of this is, I mean, you wanna make sure, public safety is the primary concern, and so, cause we've had people that just don't want any salt put down, they just want it. In fact, we have one resident that doesn't want any sand put down anywhere near their driveway, and we can't do that because, we're.
Public safety.
Yeah, that's public safety, so, the sand and salt is mainly at intersections.
Okay,
And it's as needed. And generally speaking, I think he told me the percentage of salt, I think it's a 5% mix, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's a relatively small amount of, salt. So anyway, I hope that
Yeah,
answers
no, that's
the
great.
question.
Yeah, and I think, another thing you could tell people is that, for village streets, the goal is, to make them passable and reasonably safe. It's not to make a clear roadway, like, a state highway,
right, yeah.
you're gonna want it clear within so many days.
Mhm.
And you throw the salt on to make that happen, you don't do that in the village.
Right.
We're just making them passable and reasonably safe.
Mhm.
Well, part of our problem is drainage too.
Mhm. Right.
East-west streets are slipperier than the north-south,
Right.
so.
Yeah, especially in the wintertime,
Yeah.
and then the east-west, have the more shade from the trees.
Right.
So, yeah, it's, although while we were having our or worse situation in the village. I went for a walk in the city streets and went down, let's see, it was Texas Avenue and then down, I forget what the first street is there.
Central.
Center,
Jefferson?
not the one next, south of Jefferson. Anyway, I went down that street,
Okay.
it was at least as bad as the village was. And their streets are wider, well, parts of their streets, they don't have curbs there, and that was where the biggest problems were, because they, again, they don't have the drainage isn't very good, so that's part of the problem.
I will say, Zabuski's done a very good job of keeping the sandbox full, because a lot of people come
Oh, really?
Oh,
and visit.
Oh, good, I didn't know there was.
that's good.
Yeah, that's great, Bob.
Oh, cool.
Good. Yeah, so I mean, I think generally we've been pretty happy with them. It was a mess. I mean, but those first few snowfalls were not. I'm hoping that this one will be a little bit better. Although the temperatures I think are supposed to be. I think it's gonna be kind of messy this time
Now
around
it's gonna
too.
go down.
Is it gonna go down
Yeah.
a little bit? Okay. All right. Anything else on roads or salt? If not, we'll move to set the date for next board meeting. I think we agreed that let's shoot for Monday, March 20th at 5:30 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.